settle the wreckage.
All right, well, our players are ready, so let's head down to the feature match area for round number 2. Hello and welcome to coverage of U.S. Nationals 2018. Welcome to round number 2. Marie Bartholdi in the booth, joined by Reed Duke. Oliver Tremico there on the left side of your screen on white-blue Godfarrow's Gift versus Zach Boblet on the right on black-red. So here we go. We are underway. Matt Courier going to lead things off here for Zach. Exactly the way you want to start if you're playing black-red.
Yeah, I would say so, particularly when your opponent plays an island. Matt Courier is one of the cards that you definitely want in your opening hand. You know, it's less likely to get eaten by something like a Goblin Chain Whirler, and you really want to come out fast, get underneath those permission spells, or in the case of Oliver Tremico, his combo.
All right, Matt Courier once again pecking in for some damage. 2 cards exiled under it now. Oliver Tremico down to 18. Chart a Course, put a Godfarrow's Gift in the graveyard, and a Scrap Heap Scrounger is a follow-up play here for Zach.
So we did mention, Maria, Oliver Tremico is our defending national champion.
That's
he
right.
won this event around this time last year, and he's going to look to repeat.
No white mana yet available for Oliver, which is pretty significant.
Funny enough, Oliver and I played the World Magic Cup together last year, and it was Unified Standard. This white-blue Godfarrow's Gift deck is almost exactly one of the 3 decks that we chose for that tournament. It has changed very little since this time last year.
Was good, is good. So we've got some room here for Zach as a Goblin Chain Whirler takes out our Champion of Wits, enabling an attack here for 4. And Oliver Tremico hasn't really been able to put too much together as he's kind of choked on colors here.
Yeah, we're really just seeing the reason that black-red is so strong in general, and the reason that Goblin Chain Whirler is so strong specifically, being able to curve into creatures and add another creature to the battlefield while taking out your opponent's blocker, nickel and diming this little damage that adds up. This is just the story of black-red and why it's such a successful deck and so hard to beat almost no matter what archetype you choose.
So Oliver here able to stick a search for Azcanta, hopefully being able to find him his white mana somewhere hiding out in his deck. Sunscourge Champion in hand for Tremico as well. Might be able to gain him back some life. Against an aggressive red-black deck, we saw that card really doing work last weekend against the red strategies.
You know, it's funny, Maria, that the white-blue Godfarrow's Gift deck, despite being only a 2-color deck, the mana is not as good as you want it to be.
Why is that?
Well, if you take a look at something like Zach Boblet's deck, he's essentially a mono-red deck that's touching into black for some sideboard cards, the activation of Scrap Heap Scrounger. But if he's got mountains, he's going to be all set.
Right.
The white-blue Gift deck, on the other hand, is, in a way, it's mostly a blue deck. Most of the cheap cards in the deck cost blue mana, and if you have an island, you can use your Chart a Course and strategic planning, and you're going to be okay keeping your hand. However, a lot of the more powerful top-end cards, like that Angel of Invention you see in Oliver's graveyard, they cost double white. Sideboard cards like Settle the Wreckage and Angel of Sanctions Fumigate, and it cost Oliver in that game. He wasn't able to find his white mana.
Zach Boblet taking down game 1 here versus Oliver Tremico, black-red over white-blue Godfarrow's Gift, and yeah, you said it, that white mana coming far, far too late for Oliver Tremico in this game. I have a question, too. White-blue Godfarrow's Gift, how does it like this matchup versus black-red if we're thinking about things like a braid?
I think it likes it just fine. This is a competitive matchup. I don't think there's any deck you can choose in Standard where you're pumping the fist to see Mountain Matt Courier. It's black-red is just
sure.
too brutal, too punishing to be able to say, like, I have a great matchup, I'm going to beat it most of the times that I play against it. But Oliver's definitely got a plan, and at that, he's got a multi-dimensional plan. He can get lucky with that fast combo, dump a Godfarrow's Gift into the graveyard, refurbish it on turn 4 or 5, but also he can play a long game. He can get the Settle the Wreckage, the Fumigate, he can start hard casting Angel of Inventions. So you might even see a card like Search for Azcanta, which you would generally think of as being slow, long game type of card. You might even see it stay in Oliver's deck after sideboarding for him to allow him to play that control game if that's what the draw lends itself to.
Yeah, if we're able to see the white-blue God Pharaoh's Gift, sometimes it falls behind a little early in the game, but it's kind of like pull up, and it's able to kind of just get there in the end, thanks to cards like Angel of Invention, that sort of thing.
It does have amazing comeback potential, which is something that's pretty special in Standard. A lot of times you see games spiral. We talked about the Goblin Chain Whirler, how you get to continue attacking while adding creatures to the battlefield, and Chandra, Torch of Defiance, Glorybringer, they fit that same mold. But the white-blue gift is one of those decks where it has reset buttons in the form of Fumigate and Settle the Wreckage, and it has that combo where, okay, I'm getting a 6/6 flying lifelink haste creature into play. That's going to turn a game around pretty fast if I can actually assemble the combo and get a clean hit.
So if I'm in Zach Boblett's seat, and you just mentioned the card Settle the Wreckage, and it's a card, as a player who likes to attack with creatures, I think about all the time. How often are we supposed to worry about that card, and how heavily do you play around it?
Well, I'll tell you, the thing that I love the most about the white-blue God Pharaoh's Gift deck, and in fact this is the reason that we chose it for the World Magic Cup last year, is that it really puts your opponent to a tough position in the sideboarded games, because they want to pack their deck full of abrades, duresses, anti-combo measures, and they want to play really carefully where they keep that abrade mana open all the time. But if your opponent plays too passively and doesn't deploy their threats, doesn't attack your life total, you can punish that by sort of sidestepping that game altogether. And as we mentioned, turning to the Search for Azcanta, the late game cards, the hard casting Angel of Inventions. So you can punish an opponent in a different way if they go too far in one direction, fighting your combo.
So let's take a look at Zach Boblett's deck list. What are you expecting him to bring in this matchup, Reed? You said some kind of combo killers are going to be generally what this deck is interested in.
Yeah, so I guess I didn't fully answer your original question, which was what should Zach be doing in Settle the Wreckage? And I think the answer is he's got to walk the tightrope. He's got to take some chances early in the game in order to deploy creatures and make sure he's pressuring enough. And then he'll use his judgment if he can pick his spot to hold up a braid, or potentially even bluff a braid that can come up in this matchup.
Right.
But he wants to play aggressively and take some chances early, and then if he has the luxury to in the middle and late game, then he'll play a little more carefully around Oliver's combo and around cards like Settle the Wreckage. But in general, name of the game is get your opponent down to 0. So in his sideboard, he has Duress and Doomfall, which are cards that he should turn to, but perhaps not bring in all of them without thinking. I think Duress is the type of card you're happy to draw one of, but you don't want to really overdo it and lose your aggressive potential. Abrade, for sure. That's the card that he wants to draw as often and in as many copies as possible.
And he has an additional 2 coming, or excuse me, he has 2 in the main deck.
2 in the main, 1 in the sideboard, so you can bet that third one's coming in. And then similarly to the Duress and Doomfall, he's going to want to have a modest amount of creature removal so that he can be prepared for the turn 1 Minister of Inquiries or that hard cast Angel of Invention. But again, he's got to keep enough gas in the tank that he can actually deal damage to his opponent. So, small number of Magma Sprays, small number of Unlicensed Disintegration to hedge his bets, but he's going to want to make sure he has a well-balanced deck that can still attack.
All right, Oliver Tomajko here, happy with his opening 7. Zach is going to take a mulligan here, down to 6, see if he can find a better hand. And Tomajko too, if you're playing this white-blue gift deck versus red, you've just got to the God Pharaoh gift just has to enter. You're not worrying about I should try and have them waste their abrade somewhere else. That's not really a game plan that you're thinking about, is it?
It depends a lot on the texture of your hand and the way your opponent is developing and the way they're playing. If my opponent stubbornly refuses to ever tap their mana, they're not starting from turn 3, they're passing with a braid open every single turn, I might just make the judgment call, okay, I'm not going to worry about my combo. I'm going to keep making my land drops and focus on card advantage, get my 2-for-1s with Chart of Course or whatever it might be. But it depends, Sometimes your opponent will walk you into a corner where you have to just say, okay, I'm going for it.
All right, so Minister of Inquiries in play for Oliver Tomajko, and here is a Duress. We're going to take a look at his hand and what he has going on here. Well, he certainly has his white mana this time around. Hostile Desert, a couple of plains, Angel of Invention there.
It's actually fascinating, Maria, to see turn 1 Duress out of the black-red Chain Whirler deck. It's extremely difficult to cast Duress on turn 1.
Yeah, that's a good point.
most of your black sources of mana come into play tapped. But Zach does have it on turn 1, which the good news is he's able to strip away the strategic planning. Bad news is, no Chain Whirler on turn 3. He'll have to wait a little bit and develop his mana.
Heart of Kirin here is the play for Zach Boblet, and we are going to mill ourselves a little bit here for Oliver Tomajko. A couple of lands into the bin, and another Minister finds a Champion of Wits, so great draw here for Tomajko. There's a look at Minister of Inquiries on your screen, just a little 1/2 for 1, but it plays quite a big role in this deck.
Yeah, an unassuming card, but you see Oliver getting to mill 6 cards right off the bat for a very low investment of mana. This is what facilitates the very, very best draws of the White-Blue Godpharaoh's Gift deck, which you mill 6 cards, you could have a Godpharaoh's Gift, you could have an Angel of Invention, or you could have both. And since you only had to spend 1 mana, you can also cast your other spells in the meantime and be ready for that turn 4 refurbish if you're fortunate enough for things to break that way.
So an Angel of Invention will head into the yard. Champion of Wits onto the table here for Tomajko. Back over to Boblet, and he is going to Duress once again here. And, yeah, not exactly probably the play that he's 100% the most happy about right now.
Yeah, so there we see that danger of drawing too many anti-combo cards. 2 Duresses, having trouble deploying creatures. Actually, he's got a nice mix of cards here. Even though he did miss with the second Duress, and that 1 card wasn't particularly helpful, he has found the balance here of finding pressure and a little bit of disruption.
So Scrap Heap Scrounger going to jump in the Heart of Kirin, knock Tomajko down to 16. Hostile Desert joins the land crew for Tomajko and is going to swing in here for 3. And pass the turn back over to Zach.
A little curious to see Oliver attacking with the
that is
Champion
unusual.
of Wits. The reason you would leave it back is if Zach has another 3-power creature to crew the heart, then he gets to attack with the Scrounger as well. And certainly it's a matchup where Oliver doesn't want to race, and that's a pretty favorable trade to get rid of Champion of Wits against an opposing creature, since you can always eternalize it later. But Oliver made the calculated risk that Zach was going to either not have a creature to cast or decide to spend his mana on something else. And you can actually see he's going pretty aggressive here. He's chipping away, and if he draws another Angel of Invention off the top, or he thought last turn he might have access to casting one, that damage can add up.
Yeah, so Hostile Desert getting frisky here with the Minister, in for 4, knocking Zach down to 13. Oliver Tomajko on 12 life currently. Scrounger, Heart of Kirin, all we've got in play here for Zach, but it looks like Tomajko's interested in racing, which is actually pretty interesting. I haven't seen the White-Blue Godpharaoh's Gift played this way. Zach Boblet in for another 4 here with the Heart. Will knock Tomajko down to 8.
This is another example of how you can punish an opponent that overreacts to your combo. I mean, let's not forget the White-Blue Godpharaoh's Gift deck does have 16, 18 creatures in it. You can just start attacking if your opponent draws too many of those Duresses and is unwilling to cast their Abrades.
Kari Zev Skyship Raider into play for Zach here. Adding another creature onto the table. Pretty good, no attack there from Tomajko. Once again, the Heart is getting crewed here for another 4, which will knock Tomajko down to 4.
Boy, Heart of Kirin is just the story of this game. I mean, this is a card that's been wreaking havoc on Standard ever since it was printed, and it just gets the job done, all 20 damage.
Wow, Zach Boblet taking down this game 2-0 over Oliver Tomajko, who drew a refurbish there that last turn, but unfortunately nothing to refurbish. All right, so 2-0 to Zach Boblet with black-red over White-Blue Godpharaoh's Gift. And I mean, the deck was doing what it wanted to do, which was just attack in. Heart of Kirin, what a card.
Yeah, no kidding. So tough start for our reigning champion. He's definitely not eliminated. This is a 13-round tournament, so there is plenty of time for a comeback, but 1-1 is not the start that he had last year or the one he was hoping for this year.
All right, so it'll be interesting to see if we see more of this White-Blue Godpharaoh's Gift deck here in the feature match area, or if it'll be all red all the time. I don't know, Reed, if you were coming here, what would you be playing?
Well, this is another factor of the split format tournament affecting deck choices a little bit. I think a lot of players might be in the boat where they're like, okay, I'm going to practice draft a lot. I'm going to choose a nice, safe deck for standard and hope to bat a little above 50-50 and then crush it in the draft portion. So I think you'll see perhaps a little bit of an overrepresentation of red decks because of players that are following that mold. But we'll see. I mean, maybe there's going to be some innovation, and maybe there's going to be people, rewriting history.
All right. Well, more Magic coming up from round 2 in just a minute. Don't go anywhere. Hi there, and welcome back to coverage of U.S. Nationals here in Columbus, Ohio. Marie Bartholdi joined by Reed Duke here in round number 2, and we have some time walk magic for you from our feature match area. Let's take a look. Jack Kiefer, White Blue God Pharaoh's Gift versus Robert Bowser on green, white, Aggro. And Jack Kiefer just made the top 8 of Grand Prix Pittsburgh last weekend with this deck.
Yeah, that's right. We just saw a similar deck lose in the hands of Oliver Tomajko the first round of this event, but White Blue Godfarrow's Gift has served Jack Kiefer well, and I got to imagine this is sort of the dream matchup, a medium speed creature deck that doesn't have a Braid and doesn't have counterspells. It's got to be, you have more faith that if you can assemble your combo, it's going to win the game for you.
But what if your Braid is in the form of a dinosaur? Thrashing Brontodon.
That's true. To Robert Bowser's credit, even though he's playing an archetype that I would say is generally weak in the matchup, it does look like he came prepared to face this. He's got not only Thrashing Brontodon, but also Deathgorge Scavenger in his main deck.
Okay.
And some additional sideboard tools, all the way to the fairly extreme concession of the matchup, Sentinel Totem.
Sentinel Totem.
Yeah, the standards version of Tormod's Crypt, able to exile a player's graveyard, counter a Refurbish, or just get rid of some juicy Godfarrow's Gift and Eternalize fodder.
When it enters the battlefield, scry 1, exile it. Exile all cards from all graveyards. Wow, yeah. He came prepared. So Thrashing Brontodon has been our only creature doing any damage here on the battlefield, knocking Jack Kiefer down to 17. But meanwhile, Jack Kiefer has been just sculpting his hand. So many Charred Course already cast. I think I count 3 in the graveyard.
Definitely. So this is an example of where just the specter of Refurbish can really pull out of weight. So Robert Bowser wants to curve out with his green-white beatdown deck, but he has to keep mana open for Thrashing Brontodon or risk losing to Jack Kiefer's combo. Meanwhile, Jack gets to spend all his mana sculpting his hand, filling his graveyard, and then boom, Fumigate takes care of the Brontodon, and now what's Robert Bowser going to do?
Oh, wow. Fumigate for one creature, not often you see that, but you said you've got to respect it. All right, so we're going to continue to strategic plan here. Taking a look. There is a gift in the graveyard. I think it's the first thing that we see down there at the bottom of his pile. And there is a Refurbish in hand for Kiefer as well. Wow, another Charted Course. This is just kind of unbelievable. Jack Kiefer is doing it. There's Search for Azcanta.
Do you think he's got enough in his graveyard to transform that?
I'd say he probably does. Yeah. Green-white aggro here too. We're up to 5 mana, which is kind of the key amount, but we're just going to pass the turn back to Jack Kiefer.
Now I see that Robert Bowser had Cast Out in his hand.
Okay.
He could have made the judgment call to just cast out the Search for Azcanta right away, but if you do that, you're just completely naked against a possible Refurbish or just hard cast Godfarrow's Gift at this point.
Yeah, and it's so tough too because that other Godfarrow's Gift just there's. Wow, a cast out on a cast out here is going to allow Jack Kiefer to keep the Godfarrow's Gift around.
Yeah, super crisp, clean navigation from Jack Kiefer. You noticed how the Search for Azcanta ramped him up to 8 mana, and that was the turn where he was ready with Refurbish and a way to defend it. Some interesting timing that's worth mentioning with the Godfarrow's Gift is the opponent, if they want to kill the Godfarrow's Gift, they have to do it before combat, because otherwise the trigger will go on the stack and it'll be too late. So Bowser having to cast out in Jack Kiefer's first main phase, it opens the door for a variety of countermeasures from Jack, including what we saw there with the cast out, but he could have also just had a second Refurbish if he wanted.
All right, so Angel of Sanctions here is the play for Robert Bowser.
Okay, fighting the good fight. He's going to take out Godfarrow's Gift, but you got to wonder if the damage is already done. Jack Kiefer has himself a sort of free 6/6 flying lifelink creature that he pulled out of his graveyard, not to mention 8 lands and a Search for Azcanta. You got to imagine he's going to put together some kind of powerful turn here. Yeah,
and another one in hand as well. We do have a Lyra Dawnbringer hiding out in Robert's hand, I noticed. Which is, a little bit of something to be reckoned with, but
boy, it's not too often that you see Lyra Dawnbringer hit the battlefield and not be the biggest flying creature. That 6/6 Angel of Invention actually matches up quite nicely.
And here you see kind of the power of the white-blue God-Pharaoh's Gift 2 in being able to use the graveyard kind of as a second hand, as we're able to eternalize this Champion of Wits and draw basically 1 billion cards.
Yeah, he gets to pull 5. That's a non-trivial interaction here when Angel of Invention is in play. The Champion of Wits draws an extra card, so that even applies to if you're hard casting it from your hand, getting to draw 3 and discard 2 is quite powerful.
So Jack Keefer in an excellent position here, and there is Lyra hitting the table for Robert Bowser, enabling an attack here at the Angel of Sanctions.
Huh. So Jack could block because the Angel of Invention does have Vigilance. Not sure what to make of that. Oh, excuse me. I've been referring to this Angel of Invention as a 6/6 the whole time, but he did make the servos, so it's only a 4/4. There's no counters on it.
Oh, you're right.
Then that means the Angel of Sanctions is a 4/5, 1 notch bigger, and Lyra also matches up pretty well. So apologies there. I had just done a mental shortcut that was not appropriate in this particular game.
Well, Jack Keefer here continuing to add to the board. There's another God-Pharaoh's Gift. This one bringing back an Angel of Sanctions as well. And we see what he wants to do with this one. And in fact, this one he's going to elect for those counters there.
All right, so now the original one is a 6/6 because of the 2 other angels that it's paired with. And the one that just came into play is an 8/8. So this is 14 life-linking power coming at Robert Bowser and his Lyra Dawnbringer.
You do not want to see this board state across the table from you when you are playing green-white aggro.
No, so when you're facing this, you're like, okay, step 1, I have to get rid of the God-Pharaoh's Gift. Step 2, I have to fight through all those creatures. Meanwhile, my opponent still is probably casting more spells, so things just spiral out of control, and I don't see any way Robert Bowser comes back from this situation, even with the Lyra Dawnbringer in play.
Jack Keefer goes up to 33 life. Robert Bowser down to just 2. Shalai was the draw here, which is, of course, one of the reasons that people are interested in this deck. But looks like he is just way too far behind at this point. And there she comes.
Yeah, Shalai's a great card in Standard. You posed a question during our main feature, which was red-black against white-blue God-Pharaoh's Gift, of what does the beatdown player do against Settle the Wreckage? Well, Shalai is one good answer. It gives you hexproof, meaning since Settle the Wreckage exiles all attacking creatures target player controls, it becomes a blank. You can't use that as a defensive card when Shalai is on the battlefield.
Chart, of course, here for Jack Keefer. It's got to be number 4 from his deck. Fumigate in hand as well.
Yeah, so Jack can choose any number of ways to win this game. He can Fumigate, which is going to take out all the blockers, return another God-Pharaoh's Gift to the battlefield on his side. That's what he's going to choose to do, and then just win with 2 fresh, hasty creatures. But you also got to imagine he could have out-muscled the angels on the opposite side of the battlefield just by continuing to put more Angel of Inventions into play.
Yeah, no wrong way to do it here for Jack Keefer, who's going to take down game 1 versus Robert Bowser. White-blue God-Pharaoh's Gift versus green-white aggro. So green-white aggro falling here, but it's a deck that I really, really like. Let's take a look here as we go to game 2 in our Time Walk match. And you mentioned it, the hexproof ability, pretty good when you want to play an aggressive creature deck. Who is this deck for?
Well, the glaring strength of green-white aggro is that it's going to be strong against mono-red. You can see that in the angels in the main deck, particularly Lyra Dawnbringer, getting to play that early and often off of Llanowar Elves and Servant of the Conduit is the main appeal of white-green. But generally, this is just a deck with very high card quality. Even when you get a matchup you don't like, you can put a Lyra into play and she's going to win the game when she goes unanswered. So there's a lot to like about green-white aggro, but I would say if you want to boil it down to its simplest form, it is an anti-red, an anti-aggro deck.
All right, so we are underway here in Game 2. Jack Kiefer currently up a game over Robert Bowser. Deathgorge Scavenger hits the table here for Robert.
Yeah, funny the way things are lining up here. Deathgorge Scavenger, one of the more powerful cards against Blue-White Gift, but Jack didn't have anything important in his graveyard straight away, and the Minister of Inquiries being activated at the end of the turn makes it a little inconvenient for Robert Bowser. And here it gets answered right away with Thopter Arrest.
Yep, Thopter Arrest taking down the Deathgorge Scavenger, which we talked about earlier as one of an interesting key card that Robert had access to specifically for this matchup. By the way, 2 refurbishes into the yard for Jack Kiefer.
Yes, you could see with his turn 1 Charter Course discarding planes that he didn't really have a combo type of draw. He didn't have access to Godpharaoh's Gift, and maybe he's hoping to find it off of the Minister of Inquiries, but maybe he's just looking to play a little bit of a longer game and take his time sculpting his draw, use defensive cards like Thopter Arrest and Cast Out. We'll see how this develops.
Minister here. Bopping Robert down to 19. And here's a Cast Out at the end of Kiefer's turn on the Thopter Arrest.
Yep, good target there. The Minister of Inquiries is already out of energy, so that's no longer much of a threat, and the Deathgorge can come back into play right away and eat Angel of Sanctions. But here you see Jack with a nice tight play, taking advantage of the particular templating of Cast Out. If the Cast Out leaves the battlefield before its ability resolves, the target will just never be exiled. The Thopter Arrest never goes away.
Well, this is turning into an all-out exile fight. Here's Angel of Sanctions for Robert Bowser.
Yeah. Reminds me
What
of
does he want?
dominoes or Jenga or something where you just keep building this taller and taller tower, and if one piece falls, everything, it's impossible to even predict what the battlefield's going to look like if that Angel of Sanctions dies.
All right, so Thopter Arrest under the Angel of Sanctions enables Robert Bowser to get back the Deathgorge Scavenger. And we're going to exile another Angel of Sanctions.
A really
Pretty
nice
good,
sequence
yeah.
from Bowser, being able to spend his mana at the end of the turn and then untap and play the Angel, taxing Jack Kiefer on that Cast Out, because, of course, the Cast Out could have answered Angel of Sanctions in the same way it answered the Cast Out, but Robert Bowser just putting too many must-answer threats onto the battlefield for Jack to keep up with.
Okay, so we've got a Godpharaoh's Gift heading into the yard, a refurbish in hand for Kiefer as well. And there's another Minister hitting the table, an additional 2 energy.
Normally that would be a big game-changing move to put that Godpharaoh's Gift into the graveyard, but in this case it's kind of just sacrificial fodder for the Deathgorge Scavenger, since Bowser can remove it with a single attack. Though, the situation becomes complicated given that Jack has blockers, so maybe if the Scavenger attacks and has to trade off in combat, that opens a door down the road. This is proving to be a lot closer and more interesting than our first game was.
And is there any case for Jack Kiefer just keeping a hold of that Godpharaoh's Gift and trying to hardcast it?
Sure, he's up to 5 mana already. I think he's got more in his hand, more lands. But there is merit to it, to answer your question. He's making the judgment call that maybe I'm going to try to overload the Deathgorge Scavenger by either killing it in combat or activating these Minister of Inquiries and finding something that I can get back right away. We'll see if it works out for him.
All right, so Deathgorge Scavenger is going to go ahead and eat the Godpharaoh's Gift. Sky Sovereign Consul Flagship hits the table as well, taking down a Champion of Wits. So 2 Champion of Wits in Jack Kiefer's graveyard, and here's an activation of a Minister to find what else we can throw into the yard. It's another Angel of Invention and a Champion of Wits.
Big moment here. If Jack is able to find Godpharaoh's Gift off an activation of Minister of Inquiries, he's likely to win. If not, he's in pretty bad shape.
Okay, here we go. 3 lands into the graveyard for Jack Kiefer. Out of energy. We're going to cycle.
Oh, no.
Oh, there's a refurbish.
So this is one of the pitfalls of this deck is, sometimes you find one half of the combo, not the other. So Jack Kiefer sitting with 2 refurbishes, no God Pharaoh's Gift in the graveyard, and facing down the Deathgorge Scavenger. It's not going to get much better for him. So I think we're headed for game 3 unless something unpredictable happens.
Talk about the power of the Sky Sovereign as well, just in this green-white deck generally.
Yeah, that's the Sky Sovereign. Man, what a powerful card, and that's sort of been unappreciated in Standard ever since Mardu Vehicles left the forefront of the format. But last turn, it was amazing. Robert Bowser got to play it, take out the Champion of Wits, which allowed the 4/3 Deathgorge Scavenger to attack unimpeded. And now you see him with a 6-power flying creature that gets to kill off a blocker each and every time he attacks. So Rishkar comes down, going to give itself a counter, crew up the Sky Sovereign, and we're going to see Robert attacking for, what is it, 6, 10, potentially 14 damage while killing Jack Kiefer's blocker. But here's a moment that you alluded to earlier is, ooh, how much am I going to walk into, settle the wreckage? Turns out Jack doesn't have it. And I definitely can't blame Robert for playing aggressively against an opponent that has such come-from-behind potential. You don't want to play passively and lose to a Fumigate or a God Pharaoh's Gift. And also, you haven't seen Settle the Wreckage yet. You don't even know for sure if your opponent has it in their deck. So I can't blame him, but you could certainly envision a world where this attack goes poorly.
All right, so Sky Sovereign going to take down a Minister here on its attack, dealing 3. Interesting to get a peek there at Bowser's hand. It's a Naturalize out of the board. And Jack Kiefer is going to scoop him up. That is game number 2 going to Robert Bowser and his green-white aggro deck versus Jack Kiefer's white-blue God Pharaoh's Gift deck. And, God Pharaoh's Gift is an amazing deck at being able to find what it needs when it needs it. But here we can see even a deck that is kind of incredible at that can still stumble when it's the heart of it is a combo.
That's right. There are a lot of moving parts, and sometimes those moving parts just don't all move at the same pace. Sometimes they don't come together the way you need them to.
Servant of the Conduit here is going to kick things off for game number 3. Jack Kiefer versus Robert Bowser. Champion of Wits here for Kiefer.
Bowser is thrilled to have a mana creature in the early turns because it's one of his best ways to develop early, and having more mana gives him more flexibility in holding up mana for that Thrashing Brontodon or the Naturalize, whatever it might be. He really he doesn't want to get to a stage in the game where he has to play around Kiefer's combo before he has his mana developed or before he has a board, but the Servant's going to help a lot with that.
And some of these green-white aggro decks were running Llanowar Elves, so you can have a Lyra out very early, which is pretty fun.
As early as turn 3.
All right, so Deathgorge Scavenger here for Robert Bowser, which was key in the last matchup, is going to exile a God Pharaoh's Gift for Kiefer. Angel of Sanction still in the graveyard here for Kiefer. Passes a turn, 4 mana up, Champion of Wits back to block.
And here's another super interesting thing about the matchup is Jack Kiefer cast Champion of Wits and that's a card when you see it out of something like blue-black mid-range, it fixes the draw. It leaves its controller with the best possible hand after its ability has resolved. However, with a graveyard-based deck like what Jack Kiefer is playing, he actually had to discard 2 of his better cards in order to leave the door open for comboing off, leave himself with a handful of lands. So the specifics of having to put some of your best cards in the graveyard rather than keeping them in your hand can lead to some awkward situations when something ruins your plans, like a Deathgorge Scavenger.
Cast out here taking care of that Deathgorge Scavenger. Servant of the Conduit is able to get in for 2 to knock Kiefer down to 18. Walking Ballista took out that Champion of Wits as well. How good is the Ballista in this matchup?
It's okay. It's nice for taking out Champion of Wits and hardcast Angel of Invention, so I would say it's a tool that you want to have access to, but for example, if your turn 2 play is a 1/1 Ballista, that's a little bit below par for what you really want or need in this matchup.
I think I spy another Deathgorge Scavenger at the front of Robert Bowser's hand here as well. First, we're going to attack in for 3. Kiefer will fall to 15. And there it is, Deathgorge Scavenger number 2 here for Robert. Angel of Sanctions heading into exile.
Yeah, so it's working out perfectly for him. He gets to hit the Angel before Jack hits 6 mana, and then if the Deathgorge survives to attack, he can get the Champion of Wits before Jack hits 7 mana. And just really taking the wind out of his sails.
Strategic planning here for Kiefer. He's just got a couple of lands and one other card in hand currently. All right, so the Angel is heading to the yard here, Angel of Invention in this case. Lots of land available, but he's going to pass the turn back over to Bowser. And there it is, the Sentinel Totem in Bowser's hand.
Wow, so just overloaded with anti-graveyard stuff. It looks like Jack Kiefer's going to have to win this one the hard way if he's going to win at all.
All right, so sending the team here for Robert. Deathgorge Scavenger going to eat a Champion of Wits. And wow, we've just seen how excellent this card is in Bowser's deck in this matchup. And there's the totem.
So I'd like to highlight a play that Jack made on his previous turn.
Sure.
He cast the strategic planning. He looked at 2 lands and an Angel of Invention. Already had plenty of lands in his hand, so you wouldn't think he really needs to pick a plains off of that. But I think what he did was he specifically put the Angel of Invention in his graveyard to leave the door open for drawing a hard cast God Pharaoh's Gift, because he was going to hit 7 mana the following turn. Particularly in the face of that Walking Ballista, he knew that casting Angel of Invention wasn't going to get him out of an otherwise tough situation. So I like the way he's really thinking about things carefully and setting himself up for as many chances to get lucky as possible.
So there's a Fumigate here that will buy back Jack Kiefer some time. A cast out on a cast out, though, from Robert Bowser is going to have the Deathgorge Scavenger come back into play. Angel of Invention heading into exile.
Both players making really strong plays there. Fumigate is, of course, one of Jack's best weapons against a white-green creature deck. But Robert Bowser, with the ability to play at least a little bit at instant speed, rebuilds quickly, continues keeping the pressure on Jack Kiefer's graveyard, making it difficult for him to combo off. And here comes Sky Sovereign.
All right, Sky Sovereign console flagship hits the table for Bowser. Jack Kiefer, nothing in play at the moment, was able to buy himself some time with that Fumigate. What can he put together here? He is at 6 life.
So he might be thinking that if the Sky Sovereign turns sideways, he's done for. So what can I do to find an answer for the Sky Sovereign? Or failing that, what can I do to make my opponent attack with Deathgorge Scavenger instead of Sky Sovereign?
Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, hitting the table here for Jack Kiefer. And we're going to go ahead and tuck that Sky Sovereign. 3rd card down.
Boy, but that's a tough way to do it. He's going to lose the Teferi even in the best case scenario. But maybe he just figures buying a little bit of time is all I need. I can transform the Search for Azcanta, maybe use it to find another Fumigate. As long as you're alive, there's always a chance. But he's got his work cut out for him.
Deathgorge Scavenger on the attack here for Robert. Teferi will go down, Fumigate exiled.
And actually, with all the work that Deathgorge Scavenger has done, Kiefer can't even flip the Search for Azcanta unless he wants to activate Ipnu Rivulet in his upkeep. Potentially the best he can do is just get the 1 scry and dig himself 1 card closer to an answer.
Looks like he's considering it here, though. There's the scry, yep. Land into the yard, and it was a chart, of course. Okay, here we go.
Another sweat.
Looks like just lands in hand. Okay, and he just has to pass the turn back over to Robert, who has added a Lyra to the table last turn as well. There's the attack. Exiling Teferi, and Jackkeeper has to extend the hand. Robert Bowser taking down that match 2-1. Green-white aggro over white-blue gift. And you said at the top of the match, Reed, green-white aggro not particularly favored in this matchup.
No, props to Mr. Bowser there. He is playing an archetype that has inherent weaknesses against white-blue Godfarer's Gift, but he really put the work in terms of bringing cards that impact the matchup, and he played well, leaving his mana open at the right time, choosing the right cards out of Jack Kiefer's graveyard, and he navigated to a win in a tough matchup.
And Deathgorge Scavenger being super important in that, and not a card we always see in that deck either.
Yeah, this green-white deck, it's home to like all of the best standard cards that aren't played in other decks. You know, the Scavenger, we saw Naturalize off the sideboard, which don't forget that's a legal card, and that's, you know, that effect has been good since 1993 in Magic. Lyra Dawnbringer, Shalai for the hexproof ability and the pumping your team. A lot of cool stuff going on in that white-green deck.
All right, so do we have some more Time Walk Magic to show you? I believe we do. Let's head on down. Kevin Jones versus Jacob Tilk, Black-Red versus Jeskai Control. And this is kind of a battle of the pillars of the format here, Reed.
Yeah, definitely. So Kevin Jones has also competed on the United States national team for the World Cup.
Oh, excellent.
That was a handful of years ago with Owen Turtenwald as the captain. Kevin also came one win away from making the top 8 of Pro Tour Dominaria. In that event, he was playing blue-black mid-range, but looks like he's switched it up here and wants to sleeve up Teferi.
All right, so Heart of Kirin hitting the table here for Jacob. Bomat Courier has been able to get in for a couple of hits here, knocking Kevin Jones down to 18. And Jeskai isn't a color combo that we've seen with Teferi very often.
No, but I can tell you from having known Kevin a long time, these are just his colors. You know, everybody's got their colors that they're going to gravitate towards when all things are equal. And for Kevin, it's definitely Jeskai. I'm also taking a look at his deck list. It's normally when you think of a 3-color control deck, you'd think of a lot of 1s and 2s. But man, Kevin just 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. He wants 4 Magma Spray. He wants 4 Harness Lightning. Definitely making concessions to this matchup that we're seeing here, wanting answers to Scrap Heap Scrounger and ways to protect his life total and his Planeswalkers early and often.
Meanwhile, Jacob Tilk here is doing what Black-Red wants to do. Heart of Kirin, Scrap Heap Scrounger getting in the driver's seat. Bomat Courier already 4 cards, exile under him. Kevin Jones' life total at 8. So how is his deck from coming back from this kind of deficit?
Well, what he gains in the cheap red removal to keep pace against Black-Red, he loses in the reset buttons that come from behind abilities of Settle the Wreckage and Fumigate. So this is not the way Kevin was hoping for Game 1 to develop. It looks like he's had a little bit of an awkward draw, but if he can double spell here, taking out the Scrap Heap Scrounger is real nice at this stage in the game. He also has Whirler Virtuoso, which can do a lot of work in terms of stabilizing the board in a bad situation, but he's certainly losing this game, and he's gonna have to do something pretty special to get back into it.
So Magma Spray here on the Scrounger is on the stack currently. Unlicensed Disintegration is going to be the response here from Jacob Tilk to keep that Scrounger in the graveyard and not in exile.
Boy, that's a tough play to make, but
Sure
I think part of
is.
the reason that Jacob did it is exactly what we were seeing now. He's anticipating sacrificing the Bomat Courier, which means he's going to lose the Unlicensed Disintegration anyway, and it means he's going to dump a disposable creature into the graveyard to help return the Scrounger.
All right, so we've cashed the Bomat Courier in for a bunch of new cards here for Jacob.
The Scrounger is particularly good here because it can crew the Heart of Kirin, and you see that Kevin has conspicuously left up Counterspell mana. So if Jacob Tilk's only action this turn is to cast a creature from his hand and say go, he's going to play right into the hands of a disallow and be unable to attack. We might even see Kevin disallow the trigger, or the ability rather, on Scrap Heap Scrounger, which he does.
And there we go. Scrap Heap Scrounger remains in the yard. Disallow, as you said.
So Tilk would have loved to have a Chain Whirler or another Scrounger there, but it looks like he's going to have to settle for an attack for 1 with Bomat Courier.
All right, Bomat Courier will knock Kevin Jones down to 7. Follow-up play here, Soulscar Mage.
So you got to figure Kevin breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief there. The last thing he wanted was to get hit for another chunk of 4 life by the Heart of Kirin, but he stabilizes a little bit, though still in a bad spot. And one card that we should mention got discarded from Bomat Courier, Cut Ribbons in Jacob Tilk's graveyard.
Beware, that is still in the graveyard. And now we're at the critical 5 mana for Kevin Jones here as well. Teferi hanging out in his hand. A couple of them, actually.
So he could cast Teferi, but it begs the question, then what?
Yeah, right.
You could untap 2 lands, hope to draw a removal spell. You could bury the Heart of Kirin, but then you're losing your Teferi, not really getting much traction there. Looks like Kevin's going to pass it and maybe have to settle for a Glimmer of Genius. We'll see exactly what he's got.
Goblin Chain Whirler here for Jacob, and yeah, Glimmer of Genius for Kevin.
This is not a good response from Kevin. I mean, he's got to do what he's got to do, but I understand what happened. He just put the wrong card onto the battlefield. So they're going to call a judge and see what happens. I think often in this situation, if it's obvious what Kevin intended to do, the mana didn't get tapped, the cards didn't get lifted off the top of the library, often they'll let the player correct the situation and do what they want to do. But we'll see exactly. We'll leave it to the hands of the judges to decide for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely been a number of times when I've confidently thrown my card onto the table to do something and then realized it was exactly the wrong one. So Syncopate is the intention here of Kevin Jones on the Goblin Chain Whirler. And it looks like that's going to be fine.
Yeah, Maria, I think a lot of players that maybe aren't well versed in tournament Magic, they have this kind of fear that playing in the tournament environment with the judges and everything, it's very like draconian enforcement of the rules. If you make one misstep, you're going to get disqualified. It's not really like that. The judges and the people in charge of making rules have made a lot of progress in recent years towards handling situations like the way we just saw. If it's clear what the player intends and there's no bad intentions, you're going to get to do what you want to do pretty often. So just don't worry. And if you're playing in your first tournament, something like that happens, never be afraid to just ask the judge and see what they say, because a lot of times you'll be pleasantly surprised with the ruling.
Absolutely, being able to back things up to what everybody intended. All right, so once again, Kevin Jones is going to pass the turn back over to Jacob. We do know, and so does Jacob, that he has a Glimmer in hand, but still wondering if he has any other way to deal with some of Jacob's creatures. And there's an On-Crop Crasher, adding power and haste.
There's the Glimmer.
All right,
the Desperation Glimmer.
Yeah.
So Kevin's really looking for, I guess Essence Scatter, but then the Scrap Heap Scrounger is going to come back. I guess maybe his best bet is to have an answer for the Heart of Kirin, like a Harnessed Lightning. No.
Yeah, Kevin Jones, unable to find anything here to keep him alive, is going to scoop him up. Game 1 here going to Jacob Tilt of Time Walk Magic here in round number 2 of U.S. Nationals. Let's head to game number 2, Black-Red versus Jeskai Control. So if Blue-White or Esper aren't it your flavor of control, consider Jeskai in the hands of Kevin Jones.
For me, the story of that game 1 was that Kevin started out behind. Jacob Tilk had a nice aggressive draw at a Black-Red. And then Kevin was stuck in this holding pattern where, he was answering one threat every single turn for the rest of the game, but he was just hemorrhaging life total from the creatures that were already on the battlefield. The combination of Scrap Heap Scrounger being persistent, Heart of Kirin getting crewed with every new creature that came down. It was just a little bit too much, and lacking those reset buttons of Settle the Wreckage and Fumigate does make it difficult, although we'll see if the Jeskai control deck can shine in this game where he's able to keep pace in the early turns a bit better.
Yeah, Harness Lightning here taking care of a Goblin Chain Whirler. And you mentioned it, you know, he just felt a little bit behind when he was trying to one-for-one Jacob. Well, the red deck is very good at putting out a lot of creatures into play and just couldn't keep up. So far, so good, though, for Kevin Jones. Took a hit off of the Goblin Chain Whirler, just the ping, down to 19.
Yeah, you got to consider it a win if you make it to turn 4 at 19 life
Absolutely.
against Black-Red.
I'm probably feeling all right in Jones' seat. All right, Doomfall here from Jacob. Let's take a look.
So this probably just going to wind up trading 1-for-1 with a counterspell. Actually, wow, even better than that.
Yeah.
Jones has a fairly reactive hand. The Doomfall lines up nicely against the Censor. So I think we'll see Jacob take away that Torrential Gearhulk and leave Kevin with just a bunch of 1-for-1 answers waiting to draw a Teferi or a Glimmer or something like that to get ahead.
Torrential Gearhulk, kind of a card that's been the story of Standard for a long, long time, but it kind of hasn't been around for a while and is making a little bit of a resurgence.
Yeah, that's right. We saw some control versions with Pull from Eternity instead of Glimmer of Genius. We also saw a lot of players just really going out of their way to have 0 creatures in their main deck to make the opponent's removal spells dead. But if you're not making the judgment call to build your deck in that way, let's not forget that Torrential Gearhulk is an outrageously powerful card. So I like that Kevin cycled Censor at the end of the turn, especially when your opponent's seen it. You have a lower chance of getting value, plus give himself 2 shots at finding Teferi, which would have essentially, put the game away on the spot. It does kind of work out badly as he didn't find Teferi, and now Jacob is missing a land drop and tapping out for a really powerful Planeswalker. But I definitely do not blame Kevin for cycling. I would have done the same thing.
All right, Chandra plus up here to 5. Do you really think Teferi would have just been like, game over?
Not just like that, but man, I have been on the receiving end of Teferi on an empty board enough times that you sort of despair of being able to come back. You can add some creatures to the battlefield. You can try to lightning strike the Teferi, whatever your countermeasure is, but we already know that Kevin has spell removal in hand. He's drawing 2 cards per turn. Teferi has a high life total and takes up every turn. It is a brutal card if you're not already well prepared with an established board state. And that's the secret to the success of these control decks in Standard is Teferi is just so powerful.
Chandra ticking up once again, knocking Kevin Jones down to 15. Goblin Chain Whirler is going to be met with an Essence Scatter here from Jones. So no creatures have been able to stick yet for Jacob, but Chandra at 6, bit of a problem.
Definitely a scary card for Kevin Jones. Just like we mentioned, no Settle the Wreckage, no Fumigate. He also doesn't have Cast Out, so he is down to actually trying to kill this Chandra by attacking, or potentially something that we see once in a while is the black-red player might go for the emblem on 7 counters, and Kevin Jones can disallow it. But that requires your opponent playing in a very particular way, and definitely not the plan that Kevin Jones was hoping to have to employ in this game.
All right, so we're going to speed things up here as we head towards round number 3 here at our coverage of U.S. Nationals. Hazoret is going to hit the table for Jacob Tilk. A Magma Spray is going to deal with that Scrap Heap Scrounger from Kevin Jones here. And there is a Whirler Virtuoso for Jones.
One of his best answers to Hazoret, and I put answer in quotes there because he can't really get the Hazoret off the battlefield, but he can block it a lot of turns in a row and hope to assemble something, buys time to find Teferi to maybe tuck it away. But here we see the Chandra just going for it on 7. Perhaps not the... Jacob Tilk knows that it's only Seal Away in Kevin's hand, so I do like going for this. You almost can't lose if you get the Chandra emblem and you're not under immediate pressure. So I think it's just a matter of time before Jacob finds and casts enough spells to kill Kevin Jones.
Oh, and there's another Chandra just to go along with it here for Jacob.
So 5 damage to you, make some mana, cast another spell. 5 damage to you.
Yeah. All right, and that will do it. Jacob Tilk taking this match over Kevin Jones. 2 games to 0. All right, so Jeskai control. We've seen it.